I think we heard throughout this conference, and just in general, the natural gas is going to play a part in the energy needs of this country and the Midwest and Missouri for quite a while. So we do think the future is bright for our industry. Now the question is kind of how do we play into that world? What do we do? What can we do to help out? And I'm going to talk a little bit about that as we go on. But just as a footprint of where we're at, we're the biggest gas utility in Missouri and in Alabama. We serve about 1.7 million residential and commercial customers throughout those areas. Got a little bit in Mississippi as well. And then on the unregulated side, we do have a marketing group out of Texas who handles, some of the procurement of some of the larger customers in this area and around the country. And then we currently, in recent years, have gotten in Wyoming, a gas storage in Wyoming that we basically started a last couple of years. So that's kind of who Spire is and where we're at. Just a little bit natural gas at a glance. And we kind of heard these words throughout the conference so far, but just to kind of some numbers a little bit, we kind of focus when we talk about natural gas of some of the benefits that we feel we bring to the table. Some of it's for example, I'm not going to go through these. I know it's a little bit of an eye chart, but reliability, because of some of the technologies and things over the last decade, it's created a lot of supply. We have 100 plus years of supply. Great part about it is it's domestic. So we have that part. There's very seldom outages. So that's a component that we use, and some things coming up will show why people use us in that fashion to make sure that we're there. Affordability, we've heard that several times too. We pride ourselves on being an energy that is affordable to homes and businesses as compared to some of the other energies, and has brought savings to those. And we want to continue that. And we feel that's something that's going to be out there for a long time. That's got a long-term affordability, especially with the supply that we have and the reliability we have, and efficient. So we're one of, there's not many fuel sources that we have where it's at the home at 92%. So there's not a lot of losses along the way. We don't have to generate it to get there. So at your home or at your business, you're there at a 92% efficient for that energy. So there's not much loss. And then emissions. A lot of this has to do, there is a lot of it with energy efficiency, and the way homes and businesses are built now, have had reduction in emissions, but most of this comes from electric generation, switching over from coal and natural gas, but a big reduction in emissions over the last several years because of natural gas. I probably should have had this a little bit in a different part of the slide deck, because I'm going to refer to it again. Well, this is kind of a good sign for what we're trying to do and what our customer needs are. But natural gas use for the residential side of things has went down considerably on a per home basis over the last several years. This chart goes from the 70s all the way up to 2023, but you can see the reduction in the amount of energy that a home uses over the years. The one thing I think to notice, though, and we'll talk a little bit about it, is it's kind of flattening out. So what do we do next? How do we work towards getting that next step, that next incremental bump? The second part of it is kind of broken down by not just overall, but heating and then not heating use. So the green line is more, the red line is the overall. The green line is showing kind of the heating use over the years, weather normalized, of course, and then the blue line shows the other components, non-heating, and kind of that's use and how it's declined over the years. I'll talk a little bit about next side, but one thing we're starting to do more is creating a sustainability a plan and report, and you can go to our website and get more details. I think the 2023 is there, and the 2024 is about ready to come out. But what are some of our commitments and what are some of our things that we're doing, not only from environmental, but from community, people, and leadership, we're doing to create a better sustainable future for ourselves and for our energy. And just a couple details of it, kind of things that may be more relevant. Some of the things here lately that we're starting to do that will play a big part, and it'll play into this is, and this will come out in the 2024 sustainability report, is advanced leak detection. It's something we've piloted and now we're starting to implement. And we always do, some version of leak detection, but this is a more sophisticated way that we're contracting some people out to go out, and we're going to survey over the next couple of years, 3,000 miles, to try to find out where more of those leaks are at. Kind of map those out a little better, and what that can lead to is just kind of more places to where we can fix those leaks, reduce emissions, reduce methane leaks, and to create a safety aspect to it as well. A big thing we've been working on over the last couple of years, and we continue to work on, and this is something that probably we're leading most of the gas companies across the country, is we've replaced about 880,000 meters through 2024 for new smart advanced meter systems. So we're putting in, starting with the smaller meters, residential, small commercial, putting in ultrasonic meters. And I heard a lot the other day and yesterday and throughout this about demand response and behaviors and how we change things. What this is going to help us do is two things. One is a safety aspect, right? So with this technology, we're able to now be able to either automatically the meter shuts off in a safety situation, or we can do it remote. So there's a safety aspect to it that'll help us out. But the part that's really going to help us as far as knowing what our customers are doing. So we're going into houses less and less. Over the years, we do a lot of soft turn on and turn off, so we don't go out and necessarily, we just take a read. So we don't go into homes as much as what we used to. So we have less information about what's in that home. What are people putting in? What does their energy use look like? And the advanced metering system is going to do is it's going to help us get a better understanding of what our customers are doing. So we're not only going to be able to get daily reads, but hourly, and maybe even further down into that, and then use that for a couple things. One is help us better understand what our customers energy use is, how they're using it, but also provide that to them so that business or that home can start to make better energy decisions. And this is something that, the electric industry has been doing for some time. It's a little easier for them. It's not as easy on the gas side of things. But this is an important feature that I think is going to lead to some better data and some better information about what our customers are doing and how they're using the energy. And pipeline upgrade. So we're continuing to upgrade older sections of our pipe that typically are more prone to more work, more leaks and things like that. And we continue to do that. And that's a safety aspect, but also reducing methane emissions, leaks, and then lowering O&M. So those are just some of the highlights from our sustainability report. So energy efficiency, this is just kind of a summary over the last year, kind of what our energy efficiency for residential, kind of the metrics that we have. About 17,000 rebate submissions across Missouri, about 3 million rebates paid over that time period. On top of it, I don't have the numbers, but we also have energy efficiency, efficient equipment financing, and also a PAYS program on bill financing as well. And how those break down, most of it's the heating. So roughly 45% is on the heating side of things. And then the other portion is split between water heating and thermostats. But that's kind of a look into our programs that we have here in Missouri. From the residential side of things, what are we seeing over the last several years? Just to kind of give a state of the union on kind of what we're experiencing from a residential gas side of things, from the residential part of it. So the pandemic changed a lot of things. I'm still working from home 2 or 3 days a week. I never used to do that, and a lot of people are. What we've been experiencing really since then is that most of these homes, both new and existing, we've seen an uptick in gas appliances overall. And I'll talk a little bit about some of the specifics, but the person's home became something different than what it was before. People are there now. They're now cooking there more. They're entertaining there. They're working there. And that kind of changed the dynamics. And I'll talk a little bit about some of the individual appliances that we're seeing just more market share of, but that kind of changed things. we are seeing a considerable amount of homes, especially new homes, putting in the condensing and high efficiency furnaces, taking advantage of those rebates, and putting in high efficiency furnaces is definitely a majority versus a non-condensing furnace. So that's a positive aspect. But some of the appliances we're definitely seeing an uptick in, especially in new homes and in existing homes, is gas cooking. So apparently a lot of people are watching the Food Channel and they want to be a chef, and everybody's looking at a gas cooktop. So we've definitely seen an uptick in that. Outdoor living, a lot of people are starting to turn their outdoors into something a little bit more than just a patio, and we're seeing a lot of people taking advantage of using their outdoors and putting in a lot more gas grills, gas hookups, logs, and things like that. Backup generators. This can be both I don't want to say a pro and a con for us, but it does lead to some things for us that we got to take care of. But since the pandemic and during certain times, backup generators have been a big push across all of our areas. Once again, people being in their homes, they don't want their Wi-Fi to go down. They're at their homes more, so they don't want the outage or for longer periods of time. I don't want to say the downside to it. It's an appliance. It doesn't create a lot of load for us or usage for us, meaning we're not gaining a lot from a usage standpoint, but it does create a big input, right? Most of these things are 3, 4, 500,000 BTU plus. So often, our meter and our service isn't adequate to supply that. So it does create some things kind of that the next bullet. A lot of these appliances, some of these appliances going in, don't necessarily bring the usage up a lot, but it does bring the input up. So it often leads to upgrades. We are having to do a lot of upgrades of meters and of services, especially in existing customers when they add that. The one thing I didn't add in there that I don't know if you've tried to get in line over the last couple of years of trying to get a pool, but some of these contractors are like 2 years out. And once again, that's an appliance that has a high input, so that's been leading to a lot of upgrades. So a lot of pool heaters have been going in as well in the residential market. So just some of the highlights that we've been experiencing over the last couple of years as far as the residential gas market. Conversions, we get a ton of calls on conversions every year. We've been averaging across the state of Missouri about 350 residential conversions, mostly from propane, but some from electric. Most of these are where we have mains or facilities already in front of the home, so it makes it easier. But we do easier for us to serve. But we do have areas to where we are bringing new facilities into and things like that. But most of these are just on main. And once again, it kind of comes back to we've seen an uptick since kind of the pandemic timeframe, just because people are in their homes more. They're wanting access to those items. So we probably get about 10 times the call that we actually serve, but we've been adding about 350 customers just from a conversion standpoint. We also have, I just had an email yesterday, a lot of areas of unserved communities and towns across the state and near our infrastructure are wanting natural gas to have more options for their business and to provide better economic development. Once again, pretty sizable town just yesterday contacted us, seeing what it would take to get gas to their market. So those are just kind of some of the highlights of things that we're kind of experiencing. A little bit about technology. So I'm going to focus on the technologies more, on the ones that are kind of less happening in our area, but think they could have more potential and can definitely be. Most of these are going to be more energy efficient and can help save on some of the residential usage. Tankless water heaters has been out there forever. The Midwest and Missouri doesn't see a lot of these. Our counterpart down in Alabama, it's probably a majority of their homes put in tankless water heaters. Really, I think what it comes down to is space. Down in Alabama and actually parts of our territories down in the Southwest, Joplin and Springfield, a lot of those areas don't put basements in. And so they have space constraints, and those dollars matter. It's the same way down in Alabama. A lot of their HVAC and water heater, you're either in closets, they're in the closets in the garage or closets in the house, or in some cases attics, and even they're putting tankless water heaters on the outside in warmer climates. But when you do that, they have they have those space constraints. Those dollars of spending a little bit more, maybe on a tankless water heater, is beneficial to them. Whereas most of our areas in St. Louis and Kansas City, most of those are basements, so they don't really have a space problem. So we're not really seeing it as much as, but I can definitely see something that will definitely increase over. And we do have they are definitely higher efficiency just because they don't have the standby losses. Hybrid combo systems. We've done a little bit of this around the Midwest, and it's mostly in multifamily. Once again, it's kind of a space related thing. So a hybrid / combo system, what I mean by that, and we have a rebate for this as well, is where you're using the water heater to actually heat the space as well. So you put in a water heat exchanger versus a in the air handler. It definitely is a good heat, and the reason why some go to it, especially in the multifamily, is you got one vent, right? You have one vented appliance, one combustion appliance, and it serves for both heating and water heating. And you can do that with a tank or a tankless. It's prevalent a lot in other parts of the country and in Canada, but we don't see it a lot here in the Midwest. But definitely has its place. This is one that has been trying to take hold for some time, but it just hasn't been commercially marketed enough or made to where it's got the cost where it's more reasonable. Natural gas heat pumps is playing a part mostly in the commercial world and mostly where the electric prices are higher. But it does have some significant benefits from an aspect of it uses about half the energy when you compare it to the natural gas furnace and water heater. It also maintains those high efficiencies even in the colder climate zones. But once again, we don't see this a lot here in the Midwest. Most of it has to do with just kind of the energy. It has to do with energy prices and electric prices. But it definitely something that's out there. It's been out there for a little while, and it plays a little bit more in the commercial world more and does and multifamily more than it does in the residential. But it's something we could potentially be seeing a little bit more of over time. Just some other gas applications. Once again, not as much changes in the residential world as it does the commercial industrial world, but other applications, obviously from a residential, dryers, logs. One thing that kind of stood out to me, I don't know, this is something I thought we would see more of over the years from my time, but radiant floor heating is definitely an interesting topic. I don't know if you've ever been in a home that had radiant floor heating, but it's definitely something that is probably the most comfortable heating you could possibly have. The problem becomes because if you think about it, when you have the heat coming from the floor up, you're heating actually where you're at instead of heating the ceiling. So the difference in here, when you got a forced air, your ceiling is going to be tremendously warmer than down by your feet. This reverses that, and so it definitely an energy saver because you're not heating all your space, you're heating where you're at, and it's one of the more comfortable ones. The downside to it is you still, because we're in the climate we're in, we still got to have your central air and your duct work and everything, because you got to have the AC. So it's kind of like a double. You're basically doing it for double. But it is something I thought we might see over time. We see it every once in a while, mostly in custom homes and in gas lighting and some snow melt we see in the residential world. This is from the EIA, just a slide kind of showing overall around the, on an average across the country, where do our dollars go in an average home? And two of the biggest components are heating and water heating. And this is going to look a little different if you're in the north versus in the south, but this is kind of an average, just kind of showing the importance of heating and water heating and usage and how it relates to the home itself and where our dollars go. So kind of digging into the codes a little bit. I'm in a future head, I used to deal a lot with the codes, and a lot of the municipalities around St. Louis had different versions of it. For the most part, our codes range from where they have the energy codes, range from about 2009, 2009 to 2021 is in most of our areas. The only one that has so far put in the 2021 IECC unamended is the Kansas City, and they've done that. They did that, or I think it was last year. But those are kind of the ranges. For the most part, Spire in general just kind of is mostly neutral when it comes to code measures. We do have people who actually with Spire who have been on some of the code committees and been part of the code process. What we do have some concerns and some things that and I'll show some data to kind of support it, is that energy type fairness, and then some of the data and the inputs in the calculation used for cost effectiveness. We have questioned some of those things over time, and I'll explain a little bit about that. But for the most part, Spire tries to stay neutral on code measures, but we would do like to have some input when it comes to like the cost effectiveness and some of the calculations, and I'll explain kind of a little bit of that. So what I did kind of an exercise is to kind of go through an example of maybe where utilities can help with data and help support or kind of show what our customers are doing. I've kind of updated some things that I've done before. I looked at all across Missouri, the homes that were built from 2020 to 2023, and I looked at their energy use over that time period, from those years, actually all the way through last year. That created about 22,000 points of data for all the homes during that time period. And I only looked at things that were 12 months. I looked at customers that were billed for 12 months so I could find out what a full year's worth. And so if they came online in June, I probably disregarded that and took the next full year's worth. So this information is for 12 months worth of billed usage for customers. And we only looked at homes where natural gas was used for the primary heating source. And then we took, I didn't break it down. This can be done. I can bring more data in and look at things more on a square footage basis or more regional. But this is just kind of overall. I think the average square foot in most of our areas, if I remember right, is just a little over 2,000 square feet on average. And then I also left the multifamily, multi-tenant out. This is just single family homes or attached units. And so we just kind of looked at and find out what are they using. So we weather normalized the data and find out, kind of what on an average winter, or excuse me, an average year, are these customers using? And then the results after weather normalized the data was about 600 CCF/therms. So that's what kind of the data weather normalized came out to be. So we're like, well, how does that reflect to some of the recent cost effectiveness? Because I was kind of curious to see how good are these homes actually performing? How well this equipment and energy use actually performing? So we took the $0.892, 89 cents per therm that was in that Northwest Laboratory cost effectiveness study for Missouri. The actual dollars are the marginal dollars are actually a little bit less than that. Often when cost effectiveness or these types of studies are done, they use just an average cost aspect. But when you look at marginal cost, not every CCF and therm are the same. It's actually a little bit below that for the years that I looked at. But with that said, I took those costs just from that document, and that results in about a $536 a year spend on average, whether normalized for a home, for those 2020 to 2023 homes that were built during that time frame. So how does that relate? So we kind of looked at then saying part of the cost effectiveness of looking at, and this is kind of a good story, right? Because back to kind of my slide where we're showing where energy use is going in a home from a natural gas aspect. If you look at the study that was done, comparing like what the 2009 IECC to the 2021, the great part about it is the 536 is actually kind of in that range of where the 21 basically said the heating use in zone, which is almost all of our homes are in climate zone 4 that we looked at will get to. So that's a great sign for what we're doing, meaning the way homes are built, the efficiency of the appliances that are being put in, the equipment that's being put in, the measures that have been put in place in a new home have got us, close to where the 2021 IECC is at. So that's a good component of that. And so I was trying to think of kind of where this leads to and what takeaways we do and what are the next steps based on this. And I think from my recommendation or from my view is from a utility standpoint, what can we do to help provide the data that's necessary? Because I think the things that we miss in some of the measures or the regulations or the codes that we put in is actually support from actual data. What can the utilities do? Because we've always been reluctant sometimes to provide this information. What can we do to help to all the stakeholders that are involved to help show what our customers are doing and what measures and what things that can take place, actually offer the paybacks, offer the efficiency gains, what's working, what's not working. And I think that's kind of part of it, because part of the issues I think I see out there to some extent, and I don't want to call them issues, but as you saw the slide before where the average cost per or average use per home was going down over the years, you saw how it start to flatten out. Well, part of the biggest problem I think we have out there is that incremental cost now to make that next unit is becoming tougher and tougher. It's getting more and more complicated. It's getting more and more expensive. I was laughing last night while I was talking. I kind of attribute it to my golf game, which is not very good right now. I don't know if any of you all play golf or have played golf. It's a very frustrating sport. But, when I first started playing, those first years that I started playing, I'm like, well, heck, I'm getting better, right? This not too bad. I was increasing, lowering my score. And I was even using cheap set of clubs. But at some point in time, things get tougher, right? So what did I do? I'm like, well, I played more. Maybe I took a lesson, and then maybe I'd get an extra stroke out of it or two. And then maybe, and I bought a nice new set of clubs, because it's not the player's problem, it's the dang club's problem that's actually causing it, right? My point of all that is it took me a lot more effort, a lot more cost to get to that next level. How did I reduce that stroke? And I think to some extent, it kind of relates to where we're at in some of our efficiencies in our homes, in our businesses. What do we need to do? How do we take that next step? I personally think a lot of it has to do, and I heard it a lot, is education, it's behaviors, it's using what we already done, what's in place, and using the data that we can help support to find out what can we do, when can you use that energy, how can you use that energy, what can we do to help you as a homeowner, as a business, make better energy decisions. Because I think from the data that I've shown here, there's been great improvement across the board. The question is, how do you take that next step? What's cost effective for a homeowner or a business to take that next step? And I think that's where maybe we can start to help play a part. One interesting thing I wanted to kind of bring up before I answer some question is, on the side of behaviors, we did a pretty good study about 10 years ago. If you remember, the DOE put in a direct final rule it's been about 10 years ago, of making condensing furnaces as a standard. And that it ended up not happening. We pushed back a little bit on it, not necessarily because we're opposed to high efficiency furnaces or condensing furnaces. We have rebates for them. We encourage them. We provide them. It just didn't work for everybody. And the inputs that were being used didn't match the data that we saw that was beneficial to every customer. Did it help a lot of the customers? Yes. But one interesting thing that we did is we looked at all the customers that had switched out their lower efficiency furnace and put in a high efficiency furnace or a condensing furnace. And we looked at their usage before and after. And one thing that really stuck out, a lot of people saved, and it was worth most of the people's time. Some of the paybacks were good. Some of the paybacks weren't so good. But one interesting aspect, and to me, this is kind of a training and education of behavior. A quarter to a third of the customers, and this was several thousand customers, so this wasn't a small sample. After they put in a high efficiency furnace, actually used at or more than what they used the previous. And we started thinking, it's like, why is that the case? The more we dug into it, we found a variety of different reasons, but the main reason kept coming back is it was a behavior thing, right? The person had a new nice shiny toy. They were living in an area, or they were living in something where maybe they would keep that thermostat at, I don't know, 65, 66, 67. They wanted to keep the bills down. They wanted to keep, and now all of a sudden they got this nice new shiny toy that was really efficient. And saved them some dollars, and they jacked up the thermostat a few degrees. Well, for every degree you raise that thing, that's about 4% increase in your bill. So if you save 10-15% on a new because of the new efficiency on your furnace, but then you jack up your thermostat 3 or 4 degrees, where you're kind of defeating a little bit of the purpose of the thing. So my point of all that is, I think and we learned some lessons from that. How do we educate people about how to use what they already have? And I think we could spend a lot more time and effort on educating people on how to better use their homes and their businesses to get the more out of it than necessarily always creating a measure, always creating a code. Doesn't mean we're opposed to it. It's just, what can we do to have to continue to get that next increment of energy uses and savings for our customers. And so I think that's a part of it. The second part of it is I think it's back to kind of relationships. What can the utilities do? We have ties to a lot of folks with you all. I'm tight with a lot of the home builders, the HBAs. We heard a little bit yesterday about what the HBA is proposing and what the dollars they threw out there. And then what the counter to that was. Well, the answer is probably somewhere neither one of those. But what is the right answer? How can the utilities create those gaps or bridge those gaps? How can we get the stakeholders? Because I think, unless you get the stakeholders together, I think someone mentioned this before, unless you get the stakeholders together and you actually work on a solution that works for all of them, then I'm not sure we're going to come up with a solution that's actually going to be implementable, or one that is going to benefit the homeowners or everything effectively, because we're always going to get this $30,000 end and this $7,000 end. Well, where can we go to where we can work together, and how can the utilities help that? And I think one thing we can do is be better at helping be more open about our data, what we have, and how we supply. We've been pretty over the years reluctant to supply that, but I think it's something we need to do a better job of, just as an industry, of giving you all the tools and the data you need and everybody needs in order to make those decisions. And so those are kind of some of my when it's all said and done, kind of trying to play the middle ground of it, my recommendations. But so I will leave it at that.